Hello, I'm Betsey Hamilton from New Albany. Have been here, oh my goodness, 47 years. Was born in Tupelo, about 20 miles from here. Graduated from Tupelo High School, so I grew up there. And during that time in high school, we had anchor clubs, and we had a meeting in, at that time, W.P. Daniel. And I want to believe that it was very, very early, that maybe W.P. Daniel had just opened. But I came over for an anchor club meeting, and I met, didn't know it at the time, but I met my future sister-in-law, who we had also gotten to know each other at Camp Lake Stevens. So this new friend of mine, Janet Hamilton, was also a friend of mine at the University of Mississippi, where we both graduated. I went to Memphis, and later on she had touched base with me and wanted me to ask me if I would go out with her brother. Well, yeah, I'm always up for, something new and different. And this guy was a little bit older than I, but I'm always willing to take a chance on something. So we started dating. Actually, I'll back up. I think I probably went out with him once before graduation, but then he was a little bit older than I. And anyway, I'll segue and go on into when I was working in Memphis, and he was in Corinth. And so we began to see each other every now and then, pretty much on a regular basis. But years later, things were getting pretty serious, and sometimes it takes me a while, and I know this is probably one of my faults. Got many, but this is one. I really have to study things and get real into it, before I make up my mind that this is the right thing to do. So I will just have to say that the right thing to do was for me to marry Tom Hamilton, and that's how I got to New Albany. We married in 1976, and we actually lived in Corinth. But Tom was a hardware salesman, and he came by that naturally because his family was in the hardware business. And he was wholesale, called on the hardware stores in Northeast Mississippi. And so he was living in Corinth at the time. He was the bachelor in Corinth, and had just built a great new little house out on the lake. So, but he came to Union Lumber and Winder's and the other hardware stores in New Albany, and he came every Thursday. And so thinking about, and I loved Corinth, but thinking about children and and my mother was in Tupelo, and of course his parents were in New Albany. So one day I just told him, I said, what would the difference be if we moved to New Albany and you traveled during the day to Corinth? Anyway, and we just wanted the children to be close to their grandparents, a little bit closer, and that was about the time that I was having the third child within 2 years. So I knew I was going to need some help, and I knew my mother-in-law was probably going to be a true asset to the family. So that's how we got to New Albany. I talked him into coming home.
What year was that?
That was in 1976. We married in February of 76. And first child was born in December of 76. And then shortly thereafter, well, before the second year, I was having 2 more. So that was fun.
She had 3
I
in
had
2
3.
years.
The day after our second anniversary, we had our 3rd child.
Wow.
So it can, you know, you can make it, girls. You know, you can make it.
You're a survivor.
I'm a survivor. That's right. I loved every minute of it. So while I was home with these 3, it was very seldom that I made it to church, because I couldn't get all 3 of us, and then me ready. But by the time they were about 3 or so, and Vacation Bible School was getting started at First Church, First Methodist, I got a call one night, and somebody asked me if I would help with Bible school. And I said, well, I'm not sure where the classrooms are, but I'll be able to be sure to help how I can. And I guess, you know, at my age, it's fun to kind of look back, because you can see the evolution of things moving forward, and kind of how you got from point A to point B to X, Y, and Z. So I guess that probably was kind of the first yes.
Well, how did Vacation Bible School lead to the next step?
Well, just, you know, getting to know others, and of course you kind of, you know, your best buds are so many times your parents, when you're new or anywhere, are your children's friends. And so I don't know, I was, Vacation Bible School was good. It was a good start. And then I did get active in the church, and with the elementary department and youth, and so I guess that was the connector. But I was talking with Kathy Carter not too long ago, and thinking about maybe the first thing that we really did project-wise, when she was involved with the American Heart Association Heart Fund because of the loss of a child and with heart defects. And so she was real active in raising awareness and funds for the American Heart Fund. And we had a luncheon and style show. And so she asked me if I would be in charge of the food. And I said, oh, sure, yes. I guess, you know, back in those days, we cooked a lot. And we didn't buy a lot of prepared foods. So I don't know if that made me a good cook or what. But and then I've always, you know, enjoyed just working on things. And I'm a visual learner. I'm project driven. I learned about Mississippi and being the Cotton State when I was in elementary school, and I had to make a booklet. So I like those kind of things. But anyway, we did the Hartford Luncheon and Style Show for a number of years, and that was the first time that I really had to go ask individuals and businesses for money. And the way we did that was that we had multiple grocery stores in town at the time. We had Jackson's and Stokes, big star. And so when we prepared the menu, I would go out and ask each one to donate the foods, whether it was a vegetable, a salad, or back then we did lots of congealed salads, with fruit and veggies and that kind of thing too. But then I got to where we would I would alternate the meat or the entree so that they weren't given the main ingredient, every year. So the same one. So we kind of passed it around, and that was how I guess I got started as far as organizing and making the ask, whether it was for dollars or whether it was for goods and services. And then, now fast forward, everybody looks and say, "What do you want now?"
You're not asking for a loaf of bread anymore.
I'm not asking for a loaf of bread anymore. So I don't know if that's a good thing or bad, is that they're a little prepared. But it's kind of where it kind of started, I guess. Well, at the time, around that time, which the Historical Society was formed in '91, but New Albany had just come through had celebrated its sesquicentennial in '90. I believe that's right. And so I had been asked to serve on a committee that planned a lot of the activities. And so then as part of that, the local businesses downtown had decorated or had things in their displays in their windows. So many of the businesses were family owned and had been there for a number of years. So, they had artifacts.
Like what and who?
Well, I think, there was New Ways, and then I remember Jackson's.
And what would they have?
Well, like Alan Jackson had his typewriters. The Jacksons had the typewriters and just objects, their packaging and some old things that their parents or grandparents had when they started the business had. So it was just fun to see that during the sesquicentennial. And then at one point it just entered my mind, what's going to happen to these objects when we celebrate an additional 50 years? So that kind of crossed my mind. At that point, I was in real estate, and at that same time, the Catholic congregation, but they were building a new church on Highway 15 South. And so one of the members had come to me and asked me if I would sell the church, which is where the Historical Society, where the museum started. And that's the gallery where the timeline of the history of the county is. So it was just a rectangular, one-room building with an office over to the side attached to it, small, almost as big as this room, a little bit bigger than this space. There were some members who kept talking about, we need a museum. We need a museum. Why don't we do a museum? And these were there was one gentleman, Roger Norman in particular, that just kept pushing it. He was, I think he was at the shirt factory, and he's from the Carolinas, North Carolina, I believe. And he just, but every now and then when I would see him, he would just say, you know, we really do need a museum. So that was kind of, I guess, the first idea that he was one of the ones. And so in January or February, let's see, we just had meetings of interested people. Some of the first ones were at the library, and they came, and so the opinion was we'll start out with the Historical Society. And I think that's when 1991, I believe that's about when we were begun.
So at that point, it was just almost like a club.
Right.
Just a group of people who met.
It was just a group of people. And, you know,
and when you were meeting, what were y'all trying to figure out? How to buy this church?
Well, I guess, let me back up. Maybe we started the Historical Society early, and then bought the church. Well, actually, the church, there was a contract on the church by another individual, and then, I mean, and we had been going for months and months, but then we realized that we need that property, so we talked him out of it. And
how did y'all buy the church?
Well, we had zero funds, and the only way that we could do it would be to borrow the money, so we got about 5 people to go down to the bank and sign a note. And that's how we did it. That's how we started. And then paid it off. With the sesquicentennial, there was a lot of interest, you know, in the history and the founding of New Albany. And, you know, as I said, that the merchants downtown had displays in their windows of items and things that referred to either to their family, to their store, their business, the city, whatever. And so that sparked a lot of interest. We had the burying of a time capsule, and so people were just becoming aware of who we were, and at that time, and who we are. And so people were beginning to talk about, you know, what's going to happen.
Now that they've drug all this stuff out.
Now that they've brought out these wonderful artifacts, and what's going to happen to them.
Do you think the merchants did that on their own, or was some?
Oh, they were.
Yeah.
Because they were generationally owned. You know, maybe a parent or a grandparent had begun the business, and so there were things that they had relating to the earlier years. What was published was the New Albany book for the sesquicentennial.
Was that by the Gazette?
That was by a group of individuals.
Okay.
That did both of those. Francis Dunlap was very involved in the county history book, and then the New Albany sesquicentennial book, and I hate to say the names.
That's okay.
I think was Jean Dillard, and wait a minute, Ann Holmes was very involved in helping put together the New Albany sesquicentennial book.
So it's 1991. You've celebrated the sesquicentennial, which is 150 years.
Right.
And so now everybody's kind of all excited about the history of New Albany. And your group has been meeting for
Yes.
a while now?
Yes.
And so is that kind of when the church was purchased and
around
became
that time,
official?
right? Because then, at that point, then the Historical Society began meeting in the church, and that lasted, oh my goodness, for years until we added on.
So when it was just the church, it was, from 91 until an addition, were people just bringing their things there and kind of leaving them? Like, who was taking care of it?
More about that time was just meetings, and we would get speakers to come in, and you got to keep in mind that I was much younger than the women and the men who had known so much about the city and the county. And the extension office was valuable, and just the organizations that had been around, and then reaching out to the university, bringing in Faulkner scholars, and then we just kind of started branching out and trying to do some programs and kind of finding our way, because nobody had ever formed a historical society. And researching, and then there was a book out for small museums, starting a historical society on a small museum. And so from 91, goodness, till about late 90s, we were just feeling our way and, just doing things. We would host the Faulkner, the Yoknapatawpha group from the university. And it was fun to see the first tour bus pull up. And we also treated them to lemonade and Von Seal's sugar cookies. And
were all of your ingredients donated?
Well, no, but people we paid for those, I think. No. We started our membership, so we were, raising a little money along the way. And then people began to bring some things, but not a lot. And Mr. Buddy Holder, I believe, was the maybe he was the building trades at the VOTAC. But he built the first scale model, or either he did that at his home. I'm losing that connection, but he built the scale model of the Faulkner House. So I guess that was one of the first really big items, that we had, and that was fun. So we brought in the author of the book, Starting Right, I believe was it, for small museums. We brought her in to just consult with us and help us do it the right way, because just have always felt like, if it's worth doing it right. And so whatever right is, I guess it's whoever has been successful, and you try to emulate them no matter how large or small you are. That was in 9. We kind of programming and a little events, and learning how to operate a board and all that little stuff.
At what point did Faulkner come into this?
Well, so his 100th birthday was in 97, and also around in the early 90s, we started the Riverfest. Not exactly what date that was, but so we delayed planning for Riverfest while we were planning for the Faulkner celebration in 97. And Bill Ferris, who was the director of Center at Ole Miss, Southern Culture, was very, very helpful in our organizing and planning for the Faulkner birthday. And that was huge. So, I mean, it was really, really good. We brought in, you know, people. It was like 2 or 3 days. Had speakers and then Riverfest was, we did have Riverfest. It was on the courthouse lawn and really made a concerted effort just to make it the best that it had ever been. Earlier it had kind of been like, you know, flea market type things, but and then crafts, local crafts, but we had sessions in the courthouse for speakers and Faulkner scholars for us, and then kind of a musical thing, singer-songwriters. As I Lay Dying was at the high school auditorium, and that brought in a lot of people too. And then Mosley and Johnson, I believe, was the big band downtown in the street in front of the Welcome Center now. That was really fun. So,
was that the year that you commissioned William Dunlap?
William Dunlap did, yes, and that came at the suggestion of Marcy and Bill Ferris, and that we needed that. And of course, William Dunlap did a wonderful, wonderful job with describing, painting, visioning that postage stamp in native soil, and he writes about it so beautifully. So yes, so because we had planned that and we had it, that then became the cover for the cookbook.
And that painting's still here in the museum.
Exactly. Right. We got an arts grant for that, I believe.
You sold prints of it?
We sold prints. There was a small area, landing kind of where the pulpit was, or the choir or whatever. And so that was probably just the display area that we had. And that was in 97. And the addition, we were beginning plans for the first edition, and that first edition was completed in 98, I believe, and that was the edition that redid the existing building and then added the gift shop area, the front porch, the front door, to kind of the sporting life exhibit right now. So we had one gallery. Well, we had the 2 galleries, the church, then the entrance area, and then what is now the Creative Spirit Gallery. At the first exhibit that was in that new edition was the furniture industry.
Did you have anybody here at that point that kind of worked here? Did you have an employee at that point?
We did. We start with a director came before Jill came. Jill came in the summer of 2000.
Okay. So you're still 3 years before Jill getting there.
Right. Bob Holland came to us. He was working at Futorian, with Futorian. And they had received from their headquarters in North Carolina these huge crates of these panels. But I don't believe that they really knew what they were. They were storing them for Mohasco. Mohasco was the parent company at that point in time. And Futorian in New Albany was storing those because the Mohasco plant, Mohasco in North Carolina, was going through renovation or whatever, and I think they were changing out. So they were at the plant here, and then the plant here was doing some, or needed that storage room, and so he came to us and asked if we wanted them. Well, they were in huge crates and plywood and wrapped, and we had no idea what they were if we said yes, we want them. But we moved them to at that time I believe it was Tommy Sappington and Billy Wiseman owned the building next to City Hall, and it was empty, and so we had them moved there so we could uncrate them to see what it was that we were getting. And as we did, we realized absolutely we do want these, but who had a wall to hang them on? Nobody. So I think we really did. We opened them, and I want to think that we had an exhibit down there for a while. I mean, as we unpacked each one, we just realized what a treasure. What a treasure.
And then what to do? What do you do with this?
And then what to do with it, right. So we got in touch with the artist and just found out so much about them and how they were created, and that there was a photographer involved as well. And so we were so fortunate that we were able to get all of the photographs, the sketches that went into the panels, and now we have a place for them. And that was the basis of the furniture gallery. That was the gallery. And then, we were able to collect some other early items from Futorian and then did the cases. But until the big new edition, the second edition, they were all on the walls, with the explanation of each one. So that was fun. I believe they were hung at the same time that the timeline exhibit was done, and that was after Jill was here.
I mean, it would take it takes skilled people.
So I believe that they hung those, or either because the same company that did the casework and everything for the timeline, or maybe they came back and did the furniture exhibit, but then they hung those because they were cleated and they had done the panels for them, so they knew how to.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Back up again to how the dream of the cookbook ever even started. Like, who said, let's make a cookbook?
Well, I had a really good friend from living in Memphis who worked for Wimmer. And Wimmer was a cookbook company. I mean, it was a printing company. And they did lots of cookbooks for junior leagues and other organizations. And like I said earlier, we cooked a lot. So we all had cookbooks, and the Calico had cookbooks, and we got cookbooks for birthdays and Christmases.
They were very popular.
And they were printed, so many of them, because Wimmer was in Memphis. It was Wimmer Printing. And so anyway, my friend worked with them, and that's kind of what she did. And I don't know, just because, I have cookbooks from junior auxiliaries and junior leagues and garden clubs.
Every church had a cookbook.
Church. And so, we just said, let's do a cookbook. Why not? And so we did. And that was the day before everybody had laptops and computers at home. And so I'm getting ahead of myself, but that one thing that kind of stands out is that Gloria Cooper, I believe, was doing whatever at school, business class, whatever. So we would go up to the high school at night or after school and work on computers. I believe up there, that's where a lot of the things were typed up.
On those first
computers. And but we had a wonderful group of the committee members, and for those of you who have a Worth Savoring cookbook, you can look and see the dozens of people that were involved in that and who submitted recipes. And that was the hardest part, was getting the recipes. So many of the big cities that did organizations, whether it was junior league or whatever, they would test and double test and all of those. We probably made some mistakes by not doing that, but we didn't have the time to do it. And so we kind of just spread the word, and a really good recipe that somebody has, submit it, and what was the best, and kind of took the advice of churches and members who had that recipe and used it, cooked from it, and suggestions. So
just trusted their experience.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is very special about that cookbook is the stories on the sidebars. How did that come into?
Well, that came into play from my friend Ellen Rolfs in Memphis, who guided us. She suggested that kind of format, and of course, being a historical society, it worked. And
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it did. I can't remember if we already had a Faulkner recipe, but we knew some of the, we had gotten to know some of the family members that were still alive and wanted to contribute to. I think, and Jimmy Faulkner comes to mind as far as giving us Pappy's recipe or some of those.
And then there also are some recipes from other kind of big name people who aren't necessarily New Albany natives.
We used some of the Mississippi writers, and we got those suggestions, I believe, maybe from the university.
Was it hard for people to submit, along with the recipe, their stories? Was it hard to get people to
No,
give you
not
that?
really. No, because it was, so many of those were hand-me-downs. They were mothers or grandmothers or So they were willing to do that. And
The history
even
was
some
there.
of the history was there, and then some of the guys that, you know, were the hunters and the things that they liked to do.
When you got ready to publish it, by then you already had the rights to the postage stamp painting from William Dunlap
Right.
to make that the cover.
Because we already had that.
I mean, it
And-
is one of the most beautiful cookbooks I've ever seen.
Oh, thanks.
The cover.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so.
Well, it
It
just all
stands out.
it
on a
just all
bookshelf.
came together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
You
can't
said-
remember who came up with the name, but Worth Savoring, just because of the stories and behind the recipes and the Faulknerian twist, and Worth Savoring just seemed to be a good one.
Y'all had a goal to have it ready by this Faulkner's 100th birthday.
Yes, because we wanted to sell it to those who came to the. We had a tasting downtown at one of the stores that was, I believe, the coffee shops weren't there yet. I believe it was at a frame shop. We used the recipes, so everybody would want to buy a book to taste it at home.
Yeah. Do you remember how many books you printed? Like, or did you print like 1,000?
No.
500?
No, I don't remember how many,
Really?
but we ordered again, I believe.
You did?
Yes. But we
There's
haven't
still some
sold out.
available.
Yes, they are. I don't think we had the second. Maybe we didn't do the second printing.
I bet you did.
I believe we did have some at Square Books, and we did have some at Reed's Bookstore, but that was probably it.
Yeah. Oh, and it was a different
It's a-
time to
Yes,
to even let people know that it was available other
Right.
than newspaper. What did
exactly,
you have?
exactly.
Yeah, today we
So-
can probably sell a lot more.
Yes. Well, maybe we should do a new printing.
Who discovered Jill Smith?
Well, we had our first director was from Oxford, and he was he had been at Roanoke maybe as a graduate student, and so he came first and didn't stay long. He was from Louisiana, and I think he maybe came in January, or maybe came earlier and left. He came earlier and left in January, I believe, or we knew he was leaving because we started talking about Jill. We had learned that through a neighbor actually across the street that she was in Huntsville and she wanted to come back to this area, and she was journalism.
Had you met
She
her
was-
before?
No, but we interviewed her.
And how'd that go?
Well, she's here.
She's still here.
She's still here. It was perfect. It was perfect.
How did you
In
know
fact,
she was the right fit?
She started in June of 2000. So she's this month beginning her 26th year. She had done an exhibit for the library, Civil War exhibit, and some of us went down and looked at it. This is what we need. Can do some things in-house, so I think just seeing what she had done before, and took a chance.
Boy, she didn't know what she was getting into.
I mean, you know, she said, I think she asked us about our objects, and we said, well, we don't have any.
You got that scale model?
We got that scale model, and that was about it.
And an old typewriter.
We didn't have the typewriter yet. Jill just, you know, she has a love for history, and she loves to dig in the creeks, walk the creeks, collect. I mean, she was a lover of the outdoors and knew so much about our history, because so much of the early part was Pontotocs too. And so it was a great fit.
She is willing to listen to people's stories, and she has the ability to remember them.
Yes.
And that's two big things.
Yes.
That's important. So once you got Jill in 2000, then how did things start moving along with the museum?
Well, because Jill was here.
But what happened, I guess, like, what was next on the timeline?
I had been going to conferences, and I think the Southeast Museum Conference. I had been to one in Jackson, and it's all of representatives from museums in the Southeast. Had been to one, and actually in Little Rock, and so you meet people, you know, and you meet, you talk, you find your exhibit designers. Not everybody wanted to come into a small museum that had very little. But that's kind of where, you know, when things really, after she got here, we had the first edition, and it was to develop the timeline of the history of the county. And that's what she knew so much about. And I think if we didn't have her with all of her interest and knowledge of the early days, that we would not have done the timeline of the history first. But that's what we needed to start with. We selected a company out of Houston, I believe, Houston, Texas. And I had met him at a conference, and they were willing to they did small museums. So it worked perfectly. And we liked their work and how they did it. And we would sit up here at night and write text and text and text. You know, Jill's into fossils, and so she knew the contacts, and she knew people who had collected, and then just, you know, we would have articles in the paper. That was how we communicated, you know, like you said, the need, and then we would have small events. We would do exhibit openings on Sunday afternoon, and that's kind of how, you know, the collection started. All of the Moses Collins things. Moses Collins, the founder of New Albany, and the Collins family had reunions here every year. And so that was something that, you know, spearheaded the collection of his items, because we finally had a place to, you know, keep them. And one thing just led to another.
I guess when people come in and they see this thing, and then they say, "Oh,
I've got that."
I have.
Yes.
I can fill in this gap right here.
Yes. Because the county history book had already been completed, we had all of that timeline to use as the basis of the exhibits. So, you know, aside from New Albany's sesquicentennial and the group that printed the Union County history book, we had the facts. We just needed the objects to go along with them. So things just kind of fell into place. Talking about fundraising earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So the first grant that we got, first grant for any money outside of the individuals, was from Create Foundation. It was a $10,000 check. And it was before anything that really had started, the new editions, because the office was still in the White House, as we referred to it then, and now it's kind of been the annex, and now it's the storage, some of the storage. But I got that check and I thought, okay, we've got $10,000. What do we do with it? Do we cash it? Do we put it in? Because if we put it in the bank, we accept it. There's no turning back. So I took it to the alderman and I held it up. I said, what do we do with this? Are y'all going for it? Because if we do, we can't stop. So they said, positive. So we did.
That made it official.
That made it official. Yeah, I think that was it. And you know, we had paid off the building, but then that got us really started.
Where to go next?
Yeah, where to go next. So it's, you know, kind of like at home when one closet fills up. What do you do?
So are you saying that may have been your most exciting thing?
No, I think my
Donations.
most object-wise, I love getting the Moses Collins shirt. But for me, as an individual, the most excited I've been was that Jill had connected us with, of course, all the fossil folks. And so he was, this may have been pre-Jill. So my kids graduated in 2000. She came, yeah, this was before Jill. A guy was coming from the State Department to dig for fossils. I guess this was it when we were still the Historical Society and we were meeting in the church and whatever. So some of us were going out to this site, and I'm not going to say where it is, but it was out in the eastern part of the county, and they had permission.
Yeah.
But David Dockery was from some environmental department, State Department. And so there were a few of us from the Historical Society that wanted to go dig, and I wanted to go. But it was an Ole Miss football weekend, and my kids were all gathering. We were all gathering at the Grove. But I said, I'll see y'all later. I just can't turn this down. So anyway, we went, and he was showing us how to dig for fossils, how careful you have to be, and you just pick and you pick and you pick. And so I was standing there on this wall of dirt, and we picked at it, and he could tell from what he saw. He said, "Ooh, this is gonna be a good one." So he kept picking around, and he pulled it out, but I was kneeling there right with him, and we got to keep it. I brought it to the museum, and it's on display, and it's one of the best
What is
fossils out there. I don't know what you call it.
Is it from a dinosaur?
No, it's the shell. It's the prettiest shell out there.
The one that looks like the big white shell?
No, it's not. It's like this.
Okay.
Yes, it's oblong, and it's big up here, and then it comes down.
And you
when
were
you
there.
look at that case, yes. So I do tell, if I'm doing the tour, I have to say I have to find that shell. It gave me a greater appreciation for what was here before we were here. And,
I mean, I wonder how many.
And how that we were underwater. I mean, you know, that's just something we don't think about. But yeah.
Never think about
Never. Mm-mm. Up in the hills.
Yeah.
Short version is we were out of space, and we had grown. We had the furniture exhibit. We needed more. We needed a larger museum moments space, and because that keeps people coming into the museum. And then so that was when we then extended the building, and had thought that we would do a creative exhibit at the end of the hall, and but that never happened. And then the big addition came. We had to have some place to house the animals and the mounts, and so that was it, because that was our museum moments room, and we outgrew it, and then we had the animals because I'd forgotten about the gray house. Yeah, but we had bought the gray house, and it's just been an evolution of, you know, outer space, more programming, new exhibits, and here we are again, doing it all over again.
Yeah. I mean, now you have the Toyota gallery. You've got the William Faulkner Library.
Yes.
And all the archive stuff back there.
Yes.
It's all full.
And now we're planning on another building and new exhibits.
You've also added a whole outdoor space.
Yes. And the
that's not just an outdoor space, it's an extension of the museum.
Yes. Jill and I had gone to a conference, Southeast Museum Conference in Knoxville, and we went to the McClung Museum, and that is mostly animals, natural science, I believe. And also we visited while there an outdoor area of the early village, I believe. I want to research this. And that's where we got the idea to do the outdoor exhibit area of what we had seen. You know, most everything here has evolved having visited other museums and getting ideas to open your mind of what's, I mean, everything has, you know, of seeing what others have done, and well, we can do that. I mean, it's like the Faulkner Library evolved from two other areas. One was the Faulkner collection library at Southeast Missouri State University from Robert Hamlin, who's from this area, and has been here and spoken to us many times. But they have a huge collection called the Brodsky Collection of Faulkner's writings, and Hilda Hill had taken me up there way back, and so that was the model. When I was traveling, if I went on a trip, Tom and I had to stop at any museum, no matter how small or how large it was, because you always get an idea.
Yeah.
And then conversations, just talking to other people. But walked into this museum in Gainesville, and I think it was their local history museum, and walked down the hall, and back in the back was this library, and it had windows across one wall, and there was this outdoor area. So those were kind of the two inspirations for the Faulkner Library.
We keep laughing about the typewriter that may or may not have ever been donated, but you go from artifacts like a typewriter, and you know, now you have a caboose and a doctor's office and a general store. I mean, you know, your artifacts have gotten a lot bigger over the years, and an entire collection of safari animals.
Yes.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah. Sometimes
it really
you have to build around what people donate, I guess, if it's worthy.
It's funny how, you know, people will, I mean, Jill had a couple in the other day, young couple with 2 young children, and they walked in and they said, how in the world did a town this size have this museum? So it's just, it's been amazing. You know, you just think about the numbers of people who've contributed in so many different ways. We don't have the wealth of one family or company, industry doing it all, but everybody who has stepped foot in here has contributed in some way. Whether you're coming to be present and support the programming, whether you've bought something from the gift shop, whether you've bought a old newspaper, cookbook, grand objects.
What do you see for the future?
The new facility. And then I would say that we're pretty maxed out, our footprint. We do need the nice storage area. And then Jill would love to have an area where we could preserve the crafts of the area. Also for carrying on the blues heritage, the music, a space for a classroom or a studio that's not the kitchen or the office space or whatever.
The coffee closet.
The closet. Yeah.
Where we are right now.
Yes, I mean, you know, this is where the business office used to be, and the kitchen. So,
we can maximize some space.
Yeah, we sure can. Yeah. Oh, I do think the building, the new building's got to happen, and then also hope that, and they don't know this yet, but hope the city would, or like Yes and Water, whoever owns that building, would allow the Historical Society Museum to take that as either business offices or whatever the need might be. But then that pretty much takes the 2 blocks, and I would say that probably would be the footprint unless somebody wanted to go up somewhere. But you know, that was the plan, the long-range plan for just when the first edition was to be where the White House is, to go up and out. But that was before we had that outdoor area. And then have a access from, if we could get the light, gas, and water building, the old one, to the alley, you know, to pave that. And then you've got connectors, and we would have additional parking over there because we're pretty maxed out.
Yeah.
And parking is always an issue, I guess, when you're successful. You've got lots of folks coming in. But that building, and then to be able to preserve Sam and Bob's studio building and the one next to it. I think those would be good. And then you got to have more collections, but then because you're probably going to be changing out, or either maybe objects are going to be becoming smaller as our phones have become, but then we'll probably have an AI robot somewhere too, huh? I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, I'd say that's it for a while.
Well, I believe you'll make it happen.
Yeah.
You got a great team.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And community.
Yes.
To support.
Exactly.
Did we miss anything? I mean, I know there's a lot, but also we can't just talk about it forever. Can't talk about every single detail. I love it. I think that's good.
Just hope it continues to evolve, and I think, you know, as Jill and Stephen and Elena, the staff, and what's her name? Moment.
Who else works here?
Stop it. Penny.
I'll just take out that part.
Yeah.
We don't need to name
Just
people.
staff. No.
Because that's 2.
Yeah.
I could quit tomorrow.
Yeah. The guild, you know, so much. The volunteers at this place have been absolutely amazing. The guild members are always, you know, willing to support and help. And it takes a village, takes a team. It's been great.
That was great.
So how many years? Yeah, I'd say that's it for a while. Takes a village, takes a team. It's been great.